first present themselves and then to take it from there.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, or rather, good afternoon. My name is Petra Matić, and I'm Vice President of the Croatian Association of Audiovisual Translators. But here I'm a representative of AVTE, Audiovisual Translators Europe. We're a federation of 23 organizations of AV translators from all over Europe. From 20 European countries. First of all, I would like to thank the European Commission to give us this great opportunity to talk about a very, very important topic. And the topic is not important only for AV translators, not even for translators in general, but for all freelancers in Europe. And we have to know that freelancers are a growing population of European workforce today. The topic is collective bargaining for freelancers, and it has been now made possible for freelancers thanks to the guidelines on agreements by solo self-employed issued by the European Commission last year in September of 2022. With me here today are Sandra Mlađenović. Sandra is the president of the Croatian Audiovisual Association, Croatian Association of Audiovisual Translators. And with us online is Polona Mertelj. She's a member of the Slovenian Association of Film and Television Translators. The two of them will talk more about how the guidelines of the European Commission were received in their respective countries and what actions they inspired. But I will retrace the steps a bit and talk about what were the preparations that led us to this point. We know we're translators, and we know that the translator's work is a very solitary one. We're behind our computers, but we're not only translating, we also do administrative work, which means issuing our bills, communicating with clients, but also we're navigating the market alone. And on that market, we're always a weaker party. Weaker in the sense that we can negotiate as individuals, and it's always advisable to do so. But in reality, more often than not, we have to accept what is offered in terms of rates, in terms of working conditions. And what's the remedy for that situation? Well, for us, it is crucial to build communities of colleagues, and the best community of colleagues is a formal professional association. Such an association is a place where colleagues can meet, exchange information, exchange knowledge, but the professional association is also a body that can represent its members in communication with ministries, with government state agencies, and also maybe even on the market in communication with industry players. In our work with associations, we found out that an association is stronger when it is connected with other sister organizations. And this is where AVTE comes into play for us, AV translators. AVTE, as I said before, is a federation of 23 organizations of AV translators from 20 European countries. And the most important event for us in a year is our annual meeting. On that meeting, on that meeting, we have a special slot in the agenda, and that is what we call national time. National time is a place and time for each association to present what have been the challenges and the achievements also in the past year for them. And the other associations can take inspiration from that, some ideas and possible solutions for their own problems, because we found out that we all have similar problems. And this is precisely where the Slovenian and the Croatian association met and found out that we have much in common. But we have to say that the associations can do only so much. So we will now go to first Sandra, then Polona, to tell us where in Croatia and Slovenia translators took it from there.
Yes, thank you, Petra. Well, as Petra mentioned, having a national association and joining AVTE has certainly helped us realize that unionization, for example, among other things, was something that was indeed available to AV translators, what was possible for AV translators. And it also showed us already existing models of how this can be achieved. But what got us thinking about unions in the first place? Well, as the AVTE's survey showed, over the course of 10 to 15 or even more years, I'd say, the conditions on the AV translation market have been getting progressively worse. And it soon became apparent that translators on their own, as individuals, can do little to stop this trend, let alone reverse it, because individual bargaining power is virtually non-existent. But what also became apparent was that this was a problem that would not be easy to deal with collectively either. For example, in Croatia, there were several attempts by translators working for the same agency or the same employer who kind of tried to band together. But the obstacle there was how to achieve unity and cohesiveness among those translators, among those individuals, that would result in any kind of tangible improvement. On the other hand, there was the National Association. But as Petra mentioned before, an association is a type of organization that can only do so much because it is a particular type of organization and we function within a particular legal framework. But most importantly, I'd say, an association does not have the logistics required to engage in collective bargaining, such as legal aid or teams of negotiators. And so that is why we set out to see what unionization options are available to us in Croatia. And we have also laid this out as one of the long-term goals in our association program. So what happened then was basically that we got feelers out, started talking more with the other associations, starting following them on social media to see what they were doing, attending their events. And at the same time, we kept an eye out on what was going on with unions in Croatia. And in the process, we learned that the Union of Journalists changed its name to the Union of Journalists and Media Professionals. And they have also adjusted their statute accordingly to reflect, as they have put it, their wish to extend the already existing branch for freelancing journalists by welcoming other freelancing professionals into their fold. And so we reached out to them to inquire if they could accommodate us as AV translators in their union, because we already knew this was a route that was taken by our colleagues in Denmark and Sweden. And the answer we got was yes, you absolutely can. All we needed were 5 members, and that allowed us to start our own branch within the union, which in turn allows us to function autonomously within the union, formulate our own goals, and at the same time, we have at our disposal the union's lawyers and negotiators that if we start a collective bargaining process. So that is basically how we as AV translators secured union representation as the first freelancers in Croatia. but we decided that we would keep the name of the branch as broad as possible. We refer to ourselves as the Translators branch to make it as easy as possible for our other colleagues from other translating fields to, potentially and eventually join us. So while we were still kind of getting those technicalities sorted out, the European Commission came out with the guidelines that Petra mentioned, the guidelines on collective agreements for solo self-employed. And that was a major, crucial development because it meant that freelancers were no longer falsely equated with business entities such as companies or corporations. And it meant that if several freelancers got together and decided to bargain, negotiate with their employer or agency as a group, they would no longer be considered a cartel. So collective bargaining now became a tool that was available to freelancers and not anymore, not exclusively, but predominantly to those who were permanently employed. So, as I said, this was a major development, and in our translators branch in the Journalists Union, it created quite a buzz, and we decided to contact representatives of other associations in the cultural sector to let them know about this, why this was important, and how they can go about getting union representation for themselves. We also organized several workshops for individual freelancers, which is to say for members of those same associations, with speakers from unions in Croatia and abroad, to help them sort of get a firmer grasp on what it actually means to join a union or to start a union, because I think this still remains a largely unmapped territory in many European countries. In addition to that, as Petra mentioned, we also went to see our colleagues in Slovenia, our fellow AV translators there, who also secured union representation in the meantime, and they were a step ahead of us. They had already started negotiating with their Ministry of Culture, and it was from them that we learned about a particular issue that we in Croatia might have also come across at some point, and that was the reluctance of the ministry to abide by the EC guidelines because they only took formal guidelines and not of a law or even a directive. Polona will later on go into more detail about this, but to us in Croatia, this was a signal that there is still some more ground to be cleared before we could actually start bargaining collectively. And we realized that we would need to strengthen our position. So once again, we reached out to associations. This time we sort of zoomed in on the AV sector, targeting mostly screenwriters and various film industry professionals. We also contacted our partner union and a workers' rights organization. What we proposed to them was to join forces with us in the Union of Journalists in a kind of informal initiative that would focus on identifying and implementing our common goals. And in the very first meeting that we had together, it became apparent that we have several points in common, despite our widely different fields and professions. And underlying all of those common points was our ability to bargain collectively. And so we decided that our first course of action would be to obtain a formal opinion of the Croatian Agency for the Protection of Market Competition regarding the implementation of the EC guidelines on collective agreements for the solo self-employed. And we are very pleased to say that we have received a positive answer to this inquiry, which means that the agency confirmed they would indeed be implementing those guidelines in their work, and this in effect removes any legal obstacle that would prevent freelancers from collectively bargaining in Croatia. And that is basically where we stand today. These initial paving stones have been laid. We intend to further strengthen and expand this initiative that we started and think is really valuable and important. We want to include other stakeholders among freelancers from various professions. What we also want to do is try to solidify the position of the EC guidelines in Croatian legislation. And of course, we need to attract more members to build up our negotiating power and eventually start the collective bargaining process.
Thank you, Sandra. So Slovenia seems to be a step ahead. So now let's go to Polona to hear what's the situation there. Polona?
Okay, hi. Hi, everyone.
Polona, you're muted. We heard you.
Yeah?
It's okay. We can hear you now.
Okay, thank you both. I'd also like to thank Mr. Jan Faber and the European Commission for this opportunity to talk about the collective bargaining, the importance about collective bargaining, and of course to everyone who's attending us this workshop. It was the same as in Croatia, and probably in most places, that we really started to feel the deteriorating condition in the field of audiovisual translation, economic crisis that some 15 years ago, which culminated in all kinds of cuts in our rates or acknowledged durations of our assignments. At the same time, some language service providers started to hide the names of the recipients on the mailing list and thus hindered communication between translators working for them. As Petra already mentioned, and you all know, the translation is a solitary. It's to organize ourselves and to establish an association of audiovisual translators. 5 of us took this task at the beginning of 2012, and luckily some of our fellow translators helped us. And amongst our goals was and still is the real improvement of our working conditions. And in 2017, the Association of Slovenian Film and Television Translators joined AVTE, like our Croatian colleagues, and started our experiences with other European associations. But from here, maybe our paths took a little different way, because we already started some kind of attempt back in 2017. It was a discussion about precarious or platform workers, and I heard that a few of our colleagues were rather desperate regarding their economic situation. Since the head of the organizing NGO mentioned the possibility of unionization, I asked for a meeting. And this resulted in several meetings with other translation associations, but we couldn't find a way forward, since that union tried to gather far too many different groupings of people. That Article 101 of the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union, or TFEU for short, prevented us from bargaining collectively. However, there was an article in our legislation, which you should maybe check in all your countries, which stated that all freelancers working for public institutions should have the same conditions as those as are deemed as regularly employed. And because I'm here now and still talking about progress and everything, you probably know that there was a catch. While this article granted freelancers the same rights, we all knew that the outcome would be rather different, because everyone attempting to follow this path simply wouldn't get any work anymore, as it was a person against a big institution. And we were all on 0-hour contracts, and we still are. as freelancers or precarious workers. And we also realized that even if we try to the same thing together, like at the same institution, it would just delay a little bit, but we would be quickly replaced. So this first attempt ended unsuccessfully, but we continued our cooperation with similar associations at national level. At a national level, we produced a white paper on translation, where we gathered both academics and practitioners for the first time, presenting a comprehensive view on the situation from our perspective. And we also implemented a two-year project with the aim of promoting our professions and to raise awareness about the importance of good working practices and quality of work. And during the same period, our association followed the example of some of our European colleagues, cooperation with several public institutions from the AV field, including our national broadcaster and the Faculty of Arts in Ljubljana, created national guidelines on audiovisual translation, where we included the recommended daily workload, which is very important when you start bargaining collectively. And this is also aligned, this daily workload, recommended daily workload is also aligned with several other European associations, AV associations. But still, at that time, the question remained how to talk about rates when you are not allowed to talk about them. And our Swedish colleagues came to the rescue. We happily adopted their idea to do the opposite way. So we used their calculator and adapted it. So it allows you to calculate your monthly or yearly earnings, or maybe to be more precise, what is left in your bank account after paying all your bills, social security, insurances, etc. After you pay everything, your costs, really living costs. And after attempting this with we had been offered or worked with, we saw that we are often left with very little or nothing, despite working longer hours, weekends, holidays, or even while on holidays, which I think that you all know. And as Sandra told you, the implementation of the guidelines was an important milestone. Finally, the obstacle preventing us from attempting to bargain collectively was lifted. Well, it was and it wasn't, because new questions arose. Who will bargain on our behalf? Is our association allowed to go forth on this path? And we discovered not really. So the other solution is maybe we should start our own union. And we called a representative from the Association of Free Trade Unions of Slovenia, who offered us their assistance. When I enthusiastically wrote them, one of the members about the guidelines were adopted. We met and discussed a few options, the same as our Croatian colleagues. It was either to establish our own union of AV translators or to try to join another existing union, trade union, which was at the time Glosa, as a subsection. We were thinking about joining them as a subsection. And since we're all volunteers and give our time freely to our association, we decided that the second option, this joining a trade union, would be much more sensible and would also give us more clout in any potential negotiations that may ensue. And maybe it was fate or something, but just a month or so later, a new trade union called the SUK was created, focusing only on self-employed cultural workers. And I'm very happy to say that translators, the translator section is very active in it. So the SUG joined forces with Glossa and began talks with our Ministry of Culture. And yeah, we are in the talks, the negotiations, and of course it's not a done deal. And as I heard recently, talk is cheap, but I think we are on a good path to finding a solution. Again, it's more complex to find common ground with a hugely diverse cultural sector, but our association has composed a detailed calculation of the rates, which would enable us to have the same conditions as regularly employed people in public institutions. That means including holidays, sick leave, and other things. So we hope that by doing this, by doing our own calculation, we could or can help freelancers from other professions to create their own minimum rates for their work, and which should be based on a fair workload and pay. The path that that's at the moment, this is what we're doing only within the SUG for public institutions, so like national broadcasters, film festivals that are and everything that while all the private companies are different kind of beast, and the collective bargaining with private sector will be pursued because they're not bound to comply with the same rules as public institutions, at least not in Slovenia. But saying that, I'd like to end with some measure of optimism for the future. Although we hear again and again that many language service providers that their clients want to get everything as cheaply and as quickly as possible, no matter what quality of work is produced, there are a few exceptions who are open to negotiate their rates with translators collectively and offer them better conditions. And I hope that their example will lead them to will be an impetus for others, and our work will be cherished for what it is, and that this collective bargaining and better conditions for fair play and fair pay will be a normal practice for all translators, or should I say all freelancers. Thank you.
Thank you, Polona. Are there any questions from the audience? I don't see anything in the chat. And while we are waiting possible questions, let me ask something to our two speakers. What were the greatest challenges when freelancers wanted to unionize? Shall we go first to Sandra?
Well, I think the first, the biggest and the most obvious challenge is to get people to join a union in the first place. I mean, that's kind of the obvious one. But in Croatia, I'd say there is another thing that might be specific to Croatia, but I'd like to hear Polona's opinion about that, is the public perception of unions. In Croatia, they're still somehow perceived as a relic from a former regime, some sort of stale and self-serving structure that is somehow no longer viable in this brave new world we now live in. In some unions are in part responsible for this because they have remained largely inactive for decades, really, which cost them membership, and they are failing to attract new members. Polona, would you say that that was the case in Slovenia as well?
No, I would say that our trade unions are very active. They have much membership. At least as far as I know, it's something. It's more that the employers would like them to get a bit weaker. But on the other hand, we have the same problem as you do in Slovenia with attracting new members of our trade union, the SUG, because I don't know, people are skeptical. They think, oh yes, we'll wait for, I don't know, first to achieve, let them see if they can achieve something, and then we'll join, because we don't want to spend our money on the membership or something. I don't know. It's sometimes, yes, we might not achieve everything we want. I don't think that's possible. But even by being a member and being aware that you can participate at some level to help improve your colleagues or others, it's important not just waiting for the result, but be somehow more actively engaged in this. And I know that some people at the SUK, translators, I'm there maybe more at the background, because we can all spread too thin if we try to do. Our colleagues, a few of our colleagues from AV translation, but also from other, are very active, and they have tried their very best to get new members and to be involved in collective bargaining and with the Ministry of Culture, and to see how they will get also the with the private companies, how they would get on. So I think that's positive from our trade union.
Yeah. Unions are definitely not a spectator sport. You need to join if you want to have something done, and not stand on the sidelines and see how the things pan out, because they will not pan out unless you join. But I think we have some questions in the chat.
Yeah, the first one is for Polona. Are freelancers in Slovenia already using the minimum rate that you calculated?
That's
minimum rate. Let's talk about minimum rate.
I know minimum rate. Unfortunately, in most cases, still not, and that's why we want to set that in the collective bargaining with the Minister of Culture, at least for the public institutions, because that article that is in our legislation allows us that. That's why I said the private sector is a different kind of beast. But saying that, there are some companies or some clients that they do better than just the minimum rate that we set. So it's at the moment we are in between, because we haven't signed the collective bargaining agreement yet.
Shall we go to the second or to the third question?
Yeah, I think let's see, the second one is about...
Is a minimum rate the first question, right, that you are focusing on, or are there others? Have you decided on if you should use a rate per hour or per word, and why?
Polona, I think you can give more concrete answers than that. But as to this, if this is the first question, all right, not necessarily, doesn't have to be. At least we are trying to develop a whole catalog of things that can be considered workers' rights, not only rates, but the actual working conditions, different categories of translations that can vary in their rates because of different types, which means a different difficulty. The rush rates, for example, working over weekends, having your, health checkups covered by your employer, that it can all go into this collective bargaining package.
Yeah, and we as AV translators, we usually do how much it's per subtitle or per minute of a program. So that's where it's, they say, like, we found out that it's about 20 to 25 minutes a day to do a translation. That means the 25 minutes program, and that you can do it in 8-hour work, like work day. Like, it's, if everyone has 40 or even less work hours per week, that's that should be our standard too. Not that, oh yeah, great, I can translate 40 minutes a day and spend 12 hours at the computer working like crazy, working weekends, working nights. And this is where we were very specific in our calculation. This has to be included. This is our daily workload, which includes also negotiating with clients, taking the assignments on, checking the assignments, talking to a proofreader, including everything that you need. Then, of course, it's because you're a freelancer, you have to pay for your own tools or your own equipment, your own whatever education, further education if you want to, because as we all know, we all have to educate us constantly to improve our knowledge. And also your sick leave, your paid holidays, everything that we try to, that's how we came to our minimum rate. But there is one thing we still haven't thought about how to solve this, is because if you're a regular employee at some company, an opportunity to be promoted, you have the opportunity with your experience, not opportunity, but with your experience, with your years of work, your pay is raised. And how to achieve this, it's still, I don't know, it's beyond me how to get to there. But even the minimum, we'll get there. Okay, thank you. Even the minimum rate that we have found out what would be the minimum rate to be on the equal level with our regularly employed colleagues would be much more than the majority of people receive now.
There was a question where to organize.
Yeah, that was a very interesting question, and I'm not really sure of the answer.
If a freelance translator works for a client based in another country, where do you think he or she should get organized collectively, and in his, her country, or the client's country? Well, I would say in his or her country, in their country, because we abide in the country where you pay taxes. Yeah, I think that would be
the long and the short of it. But keep in mind, there is a panel tomorrow, fair
play.
Yeah, where they will maybe be able to provide you with an answer, because they're well, let's say several steps ahead of us.
And that panel will give a much broader European situation. So tune in later tomorrow morning for that panel. And we have a question for the Croatian team. Mm-hmm. Do you get your guidance from the trade union, or are you left on your own devices? What kind of support do you get besides legal?
Well, what we have now as an autonomous branch, like I said, I constantly work with a colleague. I liaise with him on all kinds of issues that come up with us. And no, I would not say we are left to our own devices, but that because we have to learn about unions and all things that have to do with unions. But on the other hand, where we come in is with our specific demands. So it is up to us to actually formulate, like I said, our own goals, because Union of Journalists does not necessarily know what we need as freelancing AV translators. So we have to lay it out for them in terms of what Polona was saying, you know, what particular rates we want, what particular categories, etc., etc. So it's somewhere in between. So, but definitely not left to our own devices. But I would like to emphasize how important it is for freelancers to get hands-on with this, because there's no one else who can do it for them, this type of work. They have to educate in a way the union they have chosen, if that's the path they are taking, about this. So yeah, do get involved in that way.
We have a tricky question. If you manage to get an agreement, must they fulfill it by law? Or could they just hire other non-unionized colleagues, maybe based in a different country?
Polona, what would you say to this?
Yeah, of course I can, because we're thinking about that already. That's why we have like it's a anti-dumping provision that no one can. That's I'm talking about public institutions. That's what we are in Bahrain with the Ministry of Culture. That no one, even if they want to take someone from elsewhere, they would still need to pay. That should be stated in the agreement, that they should still get the same rate. As it doesn't matter if they're in the union or not in the union. If you're working for that company, that is the minimum rate, and they cannot get below. That is so. That's what we try to achieve.
And that's the whole point of having a collective agreement in the first place, I'd say. Precisely for these kinds of situations.
Yeah. Otherwise, it would be very easy just to replace one person with another.
Yeah. An interesting question. What about the idle times? Do you negotiate the possibility of receiving a minimum wage when the work flow falls dramatically during 1 or 2 months? Well, I would say the remedy for that is higher wages, higher rates, so that you can you can endure hard times.
Yes, not with higher rates, but yeah, it's I don't know. There can be some there. I don't know, very rare, but some companies do offer flat rates for these slow times. The majority will say it's not possible. It's your problem because you're a freelancer. But as Petra said, that should be calculated within our rates, and that should be also calculated with the collective agreement. That should be included in the rates, or it's the fact that you're going to have the same amount of work. We all know there are some slow months, and that you have to leave from something. So.
Okay, thank you. Also an interesting question that I will pre-formulate a bit. Is our legal system, does our legal systems consider us as falsely self-employed persons if we work only for one single client? Did I get it right?
Yeah. We had that problem recently in Croatia, mostly with the IT branch, because the tax office went after those falsely self-employed persons. And in that sort of campaign they had going, some freelancing translators were also collateral victims, because they were not able to communicate to their tax office that they are actually unable to get permanent employment, because such an option does not exist for them, and they simply work for a often foreign-based agencies. And the tax office took a step back and actually started negotiating with the Chamber of Commerce and Trade to rectify this situation and to take into account all the possible nuances, precisely to avoid this kind of false identification of a self-employed person as being falsely employed by someone. I don't know, does that ring a bell for you in Slovenia, Polona? Did you have such experiences?
Yes, it should be. It's actually written in another law that if you have such and such percentage, I think, I don't know if it's 85 or something, from the one client that you are false self-employed. But the problem is that if you work for a foreign company, that you will never be able to, at least for now, that you won't try. But there are cases, but in other cases that some companies were forced to employ these people because they had to. Yeah. So it is possible, but yeah, this is another gray field. And if you're a freelancer, you usually don't work for just one client. So I think they count on this.
Thank you. I think our time is up. We have no more questions. And thank you all for... Okay. And I would just like to remind you that we will continue talking about this subject tomorrow on the panel Fair Pay, Fair Play on a broader European scale. So join.
Stay tuned. The best is yet to come.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I must admit this was the easiest job for me today. You handled everything so yourself and perfectly as always. So I would really like to thank Petra, Polona, and Sandra for joining us today and for giving this apparently very hot topic presentation, which you viewers helped to be even more successful with your questions and comments, for which I thank you a lot. So with this, I thank you again, everyone, for taking your time and joining us, and I wish everyone great continuation of Translating Europe Forum. Thank you again, and have a nice evening.
Thank you. Thank you all. Bye.